Welcome to Getcha Rocks Off with Mick Wall, the world's leading rock and metal writer. Each fortnight, Mick will unpack rock and roll stories. Stories that you probably won't find in print. So pour yourself a Jack and Coke and get ready to get your rocks off.
Hello, millions of fans. Welcome back to Getcha Rocks Off. I am Mick Wall. He is John Houghton. Or as we like to call him, Interrupting John.
Yeah, Robert.
Yeah, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope you're listening, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't interrupt John, because I bet Robert's listening. Right, poor Robert. I mean, he's just one of millions that say that.
Well, I like to think of him.
Observation.
I like to think of him sitting at home in his T-shirt that he's got from Getcha Store.
Well, yes, or possibly Robert might be wearing the new baseball cap from
is there a baseball cap?
Getcha Store.
Getcha Store. Getchastore.com is where it's at.
.com. That's right. Yeah. Or I like to picture Robert sitting there in his underpants.
He's Getcha Rocks Off underpants, in
wearing
fact.
a Getcha Rocks Off face mask.
Yes, and a Getcha Rocks Off Get in the Ring tracksuit bomber top.
Well,
you laugh at that every time. It's in the store.
That's not there.
It's in the store.
No. I don't think anybody would expect anything quite so tacky from us. I tell you what I'm hoping will be in the store.
Just feed the children. Feed the children.
Because they are our future.
They are our future. Buy the products. Feed the children.
Buy the products. Keep the small children.
Keep the change. If you could...
Keep hope alive.
Yeah.
Keep hope alive. That's my strong
Keep hope
message.
alive. We take PayPal and all major credit cards.
Okay, that's lovely. That's lovely.
That's the promotional announcement out the way.
Out of the way.
Yeah.
We're contractually obliged.
From now on, this podcast will be advert-free.
Well, will it?
Well, apart from when you keep talking about your books.
Well, that's true. I mean, I'm not one to go on about my books.
No.
But the most recent, the Jimi Hendrix book, Two Riders Were Approaching.
I have to say, it is very good, that one.
It is.
It is a good one.
Yeah, I agree with you. But there are many others.
Many others that aren't quite as good.
Not quite as
Some
good,
of them
but still very good.
Would you say you have a sort of an A bracket and a B bracket and a...
It's more like an A bracket.
This is one that I signed the contract and had the advance for, but I didn't quite get round to the book.
For 5
until
years.
later.
Until later.
When my enthusiasm bloomed for writing it.
The stack of red bills next
all
to
of a
the
sudden
keyboard.
I found.
Yeah, I found the new motivation I was searching for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you've got to search.
Yeah. You search
really...
for the hero inside yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, here's a man, I think, that was never lacking motivation. The subject of today's podcast, Ozzy Osbourne.
John Osbourne.
John Michael Osbourne.
John Michael Osbourne. Yeah.
John Michael Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes.
Or just Ozzy. I think we know. If you see, I mean, that's the truth. You know you're famous.
Well, actually, Ozzy Zig, wasn't it? That was the first name that he came up with. Ozzy on the famous advertisement that the other guys in Black Sabbath saw him. Birmingham, smog-addled post-war Birmingham. Whenever it was.
Bomb craters everywhere.
Yeah.
Still
the doodle
Nazi
bugs,
Germans
the doodle
hiding
bugs
in the bushes.
are going over. And Ozzy's come up with this advert. It says, Ozzy's singer, Ozzy Zig, available.
And then it say has own amp or something.
Yeah.
Because that was the real clincher.
Yeah.
Everyone's a singer, but not everybody has their
got
own
an amp.
Or is it own microphone?
Something like
has
that.
own microphone.
He had something.
He had me at had own microphone.
Yeah.
That's true. So, as you rightly point us in the direction of, we're talking about a man whose beginnings were modest, humble.
Yeah, very much so.
The post-Second World War bombed, desolate.
The second city, as
like
they
the
call it.
landscape of the moon.
The Venice of the North, as it sometimes
The Venice of the North.
That's what they call Birmingham.
Do they fucking?
They do. It's got more.
The Venice of the North
because it has more miles of canals than anywhere except Venice.
Yeah, but in Venice on the canals, you have gondolas and romantic vistas. The canals of Birmingham are full of old bicycles and
shopping
trolleys. And barbed wire for when the kids want to go skinny dipping.
But as we've discussed before when we talked about your old mate, Rob Halford.
Oh, yeah.
Birmingham was important because it was this kind of heavy metal centre. It was the, factories and the real kind of doomy, gloomy post-war Britain where this sound emerged from.
Well, if you ever see Peaky Blinders, around about sort of season
I think this is the analogy you drew before, and it went on, and every 2 minutes you say, yeah, in Peaky Blinders, they said this, that, and the other. And it turned out your entire northern cultural reference was Peaky Blinders. And the time you went to Birmingham with Rob Halford and ended up buying a pair of underpants in Woolworths.
On Wolverhampton High Street.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, let me just say this then. Far be it from me to repurpose anything I may have used in the past.
Yeah.
But if you look at the first series or two of Peaky Blinders, there's this bit where they're always walking down the main street and there's that iron foundry and it's bang, bang, and sparks and bang, bang, and flames.
Yeah.
Bang, 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 clang, clang, dun, 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 dun. That's Sabbath, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you were going dun, like the fast bit in NIB.
Sorry?
Oh, for God's sake.
So, to get back on track, Ozzy's born there in, 48, something like that?
Just after the war.
That's right. And because Birmingham had been like that for centuries, no one knew the difference. They war? What war?
Yeah.
What fucking war was that? Fucking war. I'm fucking Ozzy.
It was
Since
noisy.
you stopped interrupting,
It's
there's a lack of energy.
I told
you.
This is my exact point, Robert and other people.
And others that Robert is the leader of.
Yeah, leader of the interrupting gang.
Yeah, Robert.
Them guys.
Yeah.
No. I think absolutely. And, let's not in this podcast or all the other podcasts doing start going on about, well, then they made this and then they made that.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
We don't care about that. Tell us the stories.
Yeah.
Tell us the stories.
Okay, well, here's the story of Ozzy and Sabbath. Completely bullied by Tony Iommi.
Yeah.
They'd been to the same school. I think Tony was in the year above.
Yeah.
And that year above thing at school?
Probably a prefect.
Well, they're like giants. When you're in the fourth year and someone's in the fifth year, they're like fucking giants.
They don't talk to you. They won't acknowledge you.
Well, not in Birmingham where people don't talk anyway. They just beat each other.
Yeah.
At school.
Yeah. I like to imagine at the school, in the sort of sixth form.
They never got. They left at 14 in those days.
In the
Straight in the chimney
top
stacks.
year, it's Percy Plant and John Bonham and those guys, and then in the year below that, it's KK and Rob and Glenn from The Priest, and then the year below that, it's Tony and Ozzy from Sabbath. And it's like
heavy metal.
What was that really good show? With Phil Cornwell, it was, and he did the impressions.
Oh, Stella
Street. It's like that, but for heavy metal. Yeah, he did such a good Mick Jagger.
The corner shop.
They ran the corner shop.
No, well, it was like that. It was
exactly like that. Birmingham was like that. And below them were people like Magnum, who weren't quite as famous.
No, but they were younger. In the school.
I don't know if Magnum were.
No. Well, Tony... Well, he kept being kept back a year, didn't he?
Yeah.
He kept being kept
Tony
back.
And Bob Catley.
Well, Bob's like the Peter Pan.
Yes, he is, yeah.
Of that Birmingham metal scene.
Yeah.
Scene.
The Birmingham metal scene.
But here's the crucial difference, you see, is that all of Sabbath were born within a couple of bomb craters of each other.
Like in London, you're born within the sound of Bow Bells. In Birmingham, you're born within the sound of
the iron foundry in Peaky Blinders.
Here we
going
go.
Clang.
Here we
flame, flames, clang, clang.
And you're not
right, Tony.
You're not a true brummie unless you're born within the sound of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Or you've grown deaf within
From
the sound
foundry.
of that.
Yeah.
That's right.
And your old man works there, and his old man worked there, and his old man before that worked there.
Yeah. So this is the promising beginnings which
For
Ozzy came
Osbourne,
from.
yeah.
And
he was a thief. He was a tea leaf.
Yeah. Yeah. Ended up in
the nick. In the nick, as they say. Doing his bird.
Did his bird in the nick.
Porridge, yeah.
And that's where he got his first tattoos on his knees. He drew a smiley face. He said to cheer him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
I didn't use a fucking knife and blood. I just biro.
Yeah.
That'll do it, mate. Biro. Ozzy, one word for you. Biro.
Yeah, no.
On the knee.
No. Prison tattoo.
Did you ever see those tattoos?
I have seen those tattoos.
They literally are crap.
Yeah. Well, they are prison tattoos. What you used to have to do is you did need ink, but you would draw it on and then get a compass or a knife and dig it in through the ink, and that's what made the mark.
Ooh, that sounds rather painful.
I think it was rather painful, especially on your kneecap.
Yeah, lying in your bunk at night with a candle on your balanced on your head, doing that.
And the story is he used to spell Ozzy Ozzie, but then he realised it wouldn't fit on his fingers, so he changed it to a Y. That's true. That's the kind of
that's true, is it?
That's the kind of story you get here.
Yeah, only
and he tried to
here.
persuade Tony. Tony was in the next cell, and he said, "Tony,
Tony,
you've got to put Tony across your knuckles." Tony said, "Fuck off." Well, what I'd rather cut my fingers off than do that.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point you make. I mean, we're kind of veering away from Ozzy here.
Let's press on with Ozzy.
Press on with Ozzy, because otherwise we'll be talking about Tony.
If we go into Tony, that's a whole.
The point is this: Tony used to beat the crap out of Ozzy at school, and when they ended up in a band together,
toughened
that
up.
Continued.
Right. Yeah. Well, he wouldn't sing it properly, would he? For Christ's sake, I've written the songs. All I'm asking you to do is sing exactly the same tune as the guitar riff. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Now look here, Ozzy.
Geezer's written the words for you.
And as Ozzy always
I've
used to
written
say,
the tune.
And people would say, Ozzy, why don't you write the lyrics? You're the singer. You go, yeah, but Geezer's got a great brain.
He's got a great brain.
His teeth nearly fell out trying to say it. Yeah. Geezer's got a great brain. Which he has.
Yeah, and you've got Bill behind him on the drums.
Yeah.
Amazing drummer. Amazing drummer.
And like they say with great musicians, it's the notes they don't play. With Bill, it's the beats he doesn't keep that make all the difference.
It kind of does. It kind of is. They have a weird... They're one of those bands that have... Because of a sort of unique... The unique circumstances of Tony losing his fingers in the industrial accident. And then making the washing up bottle tops that go over his hands. So it gives him this unique guitar sound. Bill, who's drumming, doing God knows what, this kind of weird jazzy style that's completely non-heavy metal, but it works brilliantly. Geezer with the kind of bass. Geezer's not just doing the kind of Judas Priest bass, which is just Geezer's like...
apart from when it goes...
apart from when it does that.
No, Geezer told me the secret. He said he's a big fan of Jack Bruce.
Right.
And where most bass players shadow the riff. So if it's dun 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 doodle doodle you'd be gong 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 gong. Instead of shadowing the riff, he would play the bass more like a guitar.
Right, okay.
So it gets a bit technical after that. So I don't want to, for those of you that are not technical,
for those of you that aren't musicians like Mick, is your album in the Getcha store?
Well, it could be. Well,
we should put it in there.
Well, I was thinking maybe I could just empty my wardrobe first of all. Yeah. Who wants a vest from 2011, only worn about 600 times, all authentic stains, and that's proper sweat.
Yeah.
That's not just, skid marks. That's sweat. and blood and sweat and tears.
Yeah.
No more tears.
No. All very good. Get it.
Bring it back.
So you got this gear, and then I have to say this, and especially on the first Sabbath album.
We're only at the first Sabbath album.
Well, no, I just want to say this really quickly and really seriously before we go on to all the kind of mad stories and so on, is that Ozzy's voice on that first Sabbath album has whether it's the recording, which was done very quickly or whatever, it has a certain quality, and I would really struggle to define it, other than to say, it fits absolutely perfectly with the vibe of the music and the cover, and the cover that they use, which is a picture of the woman in the woods with the sort of, the haunted-looking house behind her, which, when you discover is actually Maple Durham watermill, sort of brings it, kind of makes it seem sort of less scary than it was. But he had this kind of otherworldly quality to his voice. And when he does Black Sabbath, what is this that stands before me? I don't think he ever sounds like that again on any other records, but it just sounds, absolutely makes their mark straight away, I think. And for all that Ozzy, he's not the greatest musician in the world, he's not the greatest singer in the world, but at that moment he establishes something about heavy metal that becomes a trope that millions of people have tried to reproduce.
In fact, if we're going to be serious for a moment, it's Ozzy's voice that separates Black Sabbath from
Zeppelin, or
say, for instance, Zeppelin with Robert Plant as the real figurehead, master, always voted best singer of the year every year in Melody Maker. Deep Purple with Ian Gillan, another one of those kind of
he's got a terrific falsetto and all the rest of it. And was good enough to do things like Jesus Christ Superstar and all that.
Well, these, but also this is the era of Paul Rodgers, David Coverdale,
fantastic singers,
Rod Stewart, even the bloke in Nazareth.
Dan McCafferty,
who Axl
singer,
stole so much from.
Yeah, really good singer.
Bad boy. But they had this very
Sammy Hagar and Montrose.
Absolutely. Joe Cocker, Cocker Joe, as he was known in Sheffield. And but here comes Ozzy with this vocal that is not like that. This isn't even Jack Bruce in Cream. Even Hendrix, who wasn't a great singer, had that,
he had the kind of hipster kind of
kind of gravelly.
The wind cries,
baby, take off your brassiere, my dear. Which Barry White then later
appended,
moved forward in an musically evolutionary.
Yes.
But Ozzy had this really interesting use of his voice, which became like, I know it's a cliche, but becomes like an instrument itself, but more like a synthesizer than a piano or a guitar.
Yeah.
It's part of that sheet metal kind of sound they've got. And the very first record by them I ever heard was Paranoid, and it was at a school disco when I was about 14. And all I remember is being very excited by this sound. But to me, it was indivisible, say, from like the theme to Doctor Who, or or
some
other kind of
vaguely sort of
way out
sci-fi and way out there, not like the other stuff.
And his voice though wasn't finished.
No, it was kind of very thin. But I don't think I think you're right. But I think again, it was probably down to the recording at the time, which was very basic and very quick.
Cheap.
Cheap and in and out. But he never sounded again like he did certainly on the first album. By the time you get to Vol 4, which to me, I know it's not to a lot of people, but to me is the absolute peak of early era Sabbath. I don't think they ever made a better record than that.
Snowblind.
Snowblind and all that. Iommi is so good on that album.
Is Wheels of
Confusion, the first track.
God,
and it's amazing. And there's Snowblind's on the the bit on Wheels of Confusion when the riff comes in. You just go, it's crushingly heavy, and. It's Supernauts on that record, and Under the Sun, and all of really
great record.
It's an absolutely fantastic heavy metal record, and I think by that point, Ozzy's voice is, and then they get to Sabotage, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath and Sabotage, and then they're playing with the voice with whatever is, studio technology is available, because they've got the money to do that then.
And the mountain of cocaine.
And he starts to sound different, and he doesn't have that kind of primal quality that he had on the first sort of 3 or 4 records.
Yeah, and it's unmatchable. It's I'm trying to think of another equivalent, but I think
I think you had to wait for that generation who were influenced by him, and then people started to try and consciously doom metal and death metal and all that sort of stuff. People started trying consciously to imitate that, but without much success, I think. And then by the time he comes to his solo launch of his solo career, he's just being studioified and turned into something that sounds okay on the radio,
Well, also by then they have an idea of what Ozzy
Ozzy
sound like, But I tell you what, though, when he does get the boot from Sabbath, I went to work for them straight after that, and I saw it at the time as a completely poisoned chalice, because I'm trying to think. Okay, so I don't know. Paul Rodgers leaves. This is a terrible example, but I'm trying to think of other vocalists. You need a new vocalist for Zeppelin or Deep Purple. There's the great example. Ian Gillan does leave, and they bring in David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, who are kind of like two sides of that Ian Gillan range, where he can be the big gravelly voiced, very male kind of baby, But then you've also got Glenn Hughes with that hysterical, really kind of out of control, beautiful, but also a beautiful singer, great singer. So you kind of go, okay, they lost a great singer and they replaced him with 2 great singers. With Ozzy, none of this formula works, because even at his height in Sabbath, I don't think anybody ever thought of Ozzy as a great singer.
No.
He was a very unique vocalist, in the same way that, say, Lou Reed was a unique vocalist. You wouldn't want him singing Christmas carols.
Yeah.
But at what he did, he was perfect. Or a group like Sparks, where Russell Males with a very high voice. You wouldn't say he's a great singer, but he's certainly a very unusual pop vocalist. So you've got this guy who isn't a great singer. How do you replace that? It's almost impossible. I know, let's replace him with an actual great singer.
Yeah.
And now, I think, for me at the time, it was like, well, this is square peg, round hole. It just cannot work. It cannot, John, it cannot.
This cannot be.
This cannot be.
Nonetheless, it is, and it does.
The thing that should not be.
Yeah. But I think,
becomes
again,
the thing that is.
This comes to sort of Iommi's musicality as well. Like, Iommi was sort of good enough to be able to write with Dio and exploit that and enjoy the different side of, being slightly facetious, saying all Ozzy did was sing along with the riff. He didn't, but pretty much that's what happened with a lot of early Sabbath stuff. Whereas with Ronnie, all of a sudden you can write Children of the Sea, you can write Heaven and Hell, Neon Nights and so on and so forth.
Because we are children of the sea.
We are all children of the sea. Yeah. But at the same time, Ozzy undergoes his own reinvention, and probably ironically in heavy metal terms, the hero of the story is a heroine. It's Sharon. Sharon is the one who comes along, and essentially the whole of Ozzy's life post Black Sabbath, I don't think it's a leap to say is entirely down to her.
Sharon!
Yeah.
Sharon!
That's the thing. Sharon sorts out everything from what he's going to have for breakfast to,
what he's going to have for tea.
But also
probably just a slice of ham and a baked potato.
Ozfest, the latest album, the latest, all of it. She does it all. I mean, it's an incredible act of reinvention.
She does it all.
Yeah.
But does it brilliantly in the sense that, he has the first 2 solo albums, Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman. Both of them made more or less the same time, thank goodness, because otherwise there wouldn't have been another album with Randy Rhoads. Randy dies, and a legend is born. I mean, it sounds terrible, but James Dean, River Phoenix, these people that die, Heath Ledger, Kurt Cobain, whatever. They immediately acquire an extra layer of symbolism,
because you're never going to see them again. You're never going to know we kind of know what the career path of a rock guitarist is, and had Randy lived, he probably would have been revered, but people would be, it's old, in the same way that you sort of revere Joe Satriani or someone, but no one's lining up for the new Joe Satriani album.
No. But so that isn't Sharon, but Sharon makes of that good stuff in terms of career building. Where she really scores, I think, is after that, because finding Jakey Lee,
yes, yeah,
brilliant. I
mean,
talk about a
find,
amazing find. Not Randy, but another extraordinary figure to add to the mix. But also, she puts him out on the Bark at the Moon tour with Motley Crue opening. Yeah. Motley Crue, who are literally the hottest band in America that year, but haven't quite hit headline arena status yet themselves. They're opening for Ozzy. Very next year, Rat are in the same position Motley were in. Guess who's opening for Ozzy on the big tour that summer? Very next year, Metallica in their Master of Puppets moment. Guess who's opening for Ozzy on the big tour that year? And this carries on after happened with Korn, happened with Marilyn Manson. Yeah. And each time Ozzy just get the kids on tour, but... Who, sorry?
Don't talk about him anymore, Manson.
Oh, no. Rockstar messes with chicks. I mean, I've never heard that story before.
But I think there's a kind of darker edge to this.
To Marilyn Manson? A darker... No, hang on.
But
no.
I don't want to go down the Marilyn Manson road, because it's going to put me off on a point which I was going to make about Sharon, which is... I think you're absolutely right, and the brilliance of her management and all of that. And she did see all of these things, and let's be honest, Ozzy wouldn't have seen those if you'd driven them towards him in a 40-ton truck.
I don't know if anybody would have seen them.
They wouldn't know.
It
was brilliant. But here's the thing about the Ozzy-Sharon relationship that I think then extended them beyond music and into the shows and all of that. And it's a bit of a case of one hand washes the other, in that Sharon was, as you mentioned before, was Don Arden's daughter. She's brilliant at what she does. She's obviously, as you said once, Don's son David actually describes Sharon as Don in a skirt.
And just to remind people, Don was known in Britain as Mr. Big.
Yeah,
he managed Little Richard, Gene Vincent, Small Faces.
So
Moo,
she's
ELO,
coming out
Sabbath.
of this environment. There's no surprise that she's a brilliant manager if you think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But what need does Ozzy fill in her? And I think this is the kind of romantic side of the story, is that he fulfills a need in her as well. She's giving him this career and this life, and he's rescuing him. But he's giving her that kind of domestic thing of, he becomes a husband, they become, this love story that has its many kind of offshoots, to the point where at one point he, in drug-addled rage, I think, tried to kill her. But ultimately it's a love story. They have the children, and they go off and have this whole Osbournes brand that they create. And I think that changed her life in the sort of opposite way that she changed his life, if you see what I mean. And I think that's never really reflected on, and is a really interesting part of their story.
No, I agree. I do wonder, though, if that's the one part which she didn't necessarily see an end game to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it was Sharon that gave the okay to the Osbournes, but she told me at the time that it was because they had figured out that it was over. His career was pretty much over. Ozfest. I don't know where Ozfest was at the time, but we were at the stage where Sabbath now have to reform and close the show to keep the whole thing selling tickets and on the road. And I think the early 2000s, she was kind of post 9/11. They were in New York when that happened. And, that was when she called me and asked me to work with her dad, Don, on his memoir. And they'd been at war for over 20 years. I mean, seriously at war.
Yeah.
And I got this story about post 9/11. I reconsidered, had a rethink. And I think she was going through a kind of a reset. And I think MTV offered her like $150,000 or something, which is absolutely fuck all, just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And so she let them in. And she's always been shrewd like that. She owned the phrase "Monsters of Rock" in America, and when they did the Monsters of Rock tour in America, the only one in '88, Ozzy was going to be the headliner, and then whatever reason it didn't pan out. But she still allowed them to use the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean... And she won a lot of friends at MTV for that because they were involved. So she's always been good at making the right friends and thinking long-term in terms of, I don't know when or where this will be good for me.
Yeah,
but this is good.
But I mean, as it happened, her instincts were spot on because that sort of reality, I mean, whatever you want to call it, docu-soap reality type thing, she was at the perfect moment for that. And here was someone who, you know, Ozzy, yeah, look, he's had his moments. And I wanted to ask you in a minute, because it jogged my memory thinking about the fact Ozzy did try and kill Sharon, that you were the guy...
I went into rehab with him.
Yeah.
I did.
Which we'll talk about
Sharon's request.
But you know, he is this kind of lovable character. There's something about him. He's funny. You know, he's a bit of a doofus, but although he's had his very dark moments, I think the show itself sold on the fact that here's this incredibly capable woman, you know, married to a rock star who is essentially useless. You know, there's the famous, he can't even turn the TV on, can he? And all you hear through the whole episode is,
I can't turn the TV on.
That's all you hear. And Ozzy's answer to everything is call Sharon. You know, he's literally from, I don't know how to turn the TV over to, you know, what album am I making? The question is always just Sharon, isn't it? You know,
for years.
That's the amazing thing.
When I was working on the first book with him years ago, I'd say, so Ozzy, so on the Sabbath tour, whatever, and he'd go, look at me like, I had no fucking clue who I was, let alone what I was talking about. And then he'd go, Sharon, what are you doing in 73? I don't fucking know, I didn't fucking know you then. Oh, fucking hell.
But here's the thing, I remember... When Sharon when she was managing Ozzy, and she also would occasionally manage other
Lita Ford,
which she did,
could also be managed by Don until Sharon came along with a better offer.
There you go. Yeah, and the Choir Boys.
Yeah, Choir Boys. Yeah.
And anyway, she would stage a party, a Christmas party.
Oh, yeah.
She had at her house.
We were there.
Yeah, she had a house out in
Buckinghamshire,
the Chalfonts. Very sort of
nice,
wealthy area of Buckinghamshire. I went to this party and there was a queue for the the toilet, because they were you know, I wonder why.
Yeah.
What could possibly have been causing people to be in there for so long?
Food poisoning,
it's like
probably.
Banging on you've been in there for a long time.
Dodgy punch bowl.
You've been in there a really long time. Sorry, the queue's built up. Standing behind me in the queue is Ozzy, and he's queuing for the loo in his own house, you know, which was quite sweet. But he goes to me, he goes, when you go in there, and I thought, oh God, he goes, when you go in there, he goes, have a look at the toilet bowl. He goes, because it was the only thing in the house that Sharon let me choose. And I went on thinking, what's it going to be? Is it going to be like skulls or something? You know? I finally get in there, you know, and it's just, you know, it was really, you know, it was sort of you know, in the Osbournes, they had all this kind of gothic type house. It wasn't a sort of gothic house or anything like that. It was quite Laura Ashley type. You get in there, and around the loo, I mean, it's obviously an expensive loo, around the inside of the bowl of the loo were all these roses that had been kind of painted on the porcelain, you know, and that's what he'd chosen. Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm having a dump,
but he was inordinately,
I like to look at roses
he was
between
inordinately proud of it. Yeah.
No, bless him.
Yeah, bless him. Yeah,
bless him.
Yeah.
Bless him.
But I mean, that was the dynamic of their relationship summed up. But it was, you know, it happened when I was definitely at Kerrang. And I remember Ozzy attacked Sharon. Big news, because he gets arrested, doesn't he? He got arrested for it.
It was on the 10 o'clock news.
It happened in England.
Yeah.
And
it was not long after the Moscow Music Peace Festival.
Yeah, and I think basically the only way you're going to get out of being arrested in that is to be sent straight to rehab, isn't it? You know, otherwise you're going back to the clink rather than anything else.
Well, I don't know the actuality, but as it was related to me at the time by Sharon, I think the police had more or less said to her, "What do you want to do? Do you want us to keep him in?"
Yeah.
She went, "Yeah." "Do you want to press charges?" And she went, "Yeah." And so he was actually in the police station a couple of nights, and then because it was over the weekend, and then on the Monday morning they appeared in magistrates' court or whatever, and she had pretty much decided what she wanted to happen, and they put it into place. I don't know this for sure, but from my memory, if she'd wanted, she could have just said, "Look, let's just forget it," and just taken him home. But she wanted to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
And the same day, she called me and said she wanted me to go visit him there to do an interview because she'd had the world's press banging on the door, but she didn't trust anybody, which now I realise meant more along the lines of, you're the only one I really control. Yeah. Which was fine by me.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
totally aware of that.
You're getting the story that everyone is chasing at this point.
Yeah, so I went there. It was on a Sunday, and I remember George Bodnar.
Crazy George.
Yeah, Crazy George. Yeah. Sadly no longer with us. But he had brought Ozzy a homemade chili con carne as a present. And Ozzy said to him, "Is there any alcohol in it?" And I think probably there was a tiny drop of red wine from when they were doing the beef.
Yeah.
And Ozzy said, "I can't have it." And George said, "You're not even going to know it's there. If I'd said, no, it's not there, you wouldn't know, and it wouldn't make any..." He said, "Yeah, but it is there, and they do blood tests and to see if..." So he couldn't eat it. And I was fucking drooling. Yeah. I'm like, I could eat it.
I could eat it in front of
you, Ozzy.
I don't mind that.
George is like, "Oh, I better take it home then." I'm like, no,
don't
George,
take the lovely chili. Don't take the lovely chili home.
Not the chili. Yeah. So yeah, that was it was weird. It was a kind of like a mansion in the woods, and you go in the main bit, kind of like a hotel, but you go in the main bit, and there are people walking around in their pajamas or dressing gown or John's making a face because he thinks I'm wearing my pajamas today. I'm not. They're called easy pants.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lounge attire. For gentlemen of a certain stage in life. So they hide the, what do you call them? Constipation knickers or whatever they're called. What are they called? No.
Well, we've reached some lows on this podcast.
Sorry. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have mentioned the, what do they call those things?
I don't know.
What are yours called? Look on the label.
Ha, ha, ha.
And here he comes. I want to say he was wearing tracksuit bottoms because I think he might have been. They may even have been the same ones
that Axel
would wear a couple of years later.
It's all your stories. They all kind of...
Do you know what? It's funny because this was like September 89 and the Axel thing was like January 1990.
Yeah.
So maybe they'd even bought them from the same shop.
Sports Direct. Yeah.
An early version.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was incredibly sad. I mean, Sharon and the kids were just there and were leaving, and oh God, everybody was in tears. And then we sat around for a while. Then we went up to his room, and he had some cigarettes and an ashtray stashed somewhere. Yeah. But all we could do was drink tea and coffee, and it's just so it got quite manic. But I was there for a really long time, and at one point I just turned the recorder off because these days I'd have kept the thing going forever, you know, but back then it's like, it's for Kerrang, and he's crying. I don't know if I can, you know. So I hung on and we talked and, oh God, hugged and cried, and it was really very, very sweet. And then... I remember a few years later, I was talking to him and he started telling me it was called Hunter Combe Manor. He started telling me about it. I said, I know, I was there, remember? He went,
were you?
You were there? Yeah. I went, yeah. He goes, what, you were I said, no, not as I came to visit you, remember? We were there all night talking and no fucking recollection whatsoever. For me, I will never forget that night. him. Don't lie to me.
Yeah.
Get in the ring, you printing lies, starting controversy. I came out and we did this big story in Kerrang, two-part.
Yeah, two-parter, yeah.
Also did a story for the Daily Mail, the National Enquirer, New York Post, blah, 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 blah. It just went round and round the world. And but that all came from the Moscow Music Peace Festival, he told me, where, this anti-alcohol and substance abuse festival, where the promoter had presented Ozzy as a gift a big case of different flavoured vodkas. You get the little lemon vodka, orange vodka, peppermint.
Yeah.
There's like 20 of these in a case. And Ozzy had them littered around the house and he'd been knocking them back.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Until finally he had the blackout.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But he had that thing of, I remember you saying before, he had that phrase. It's a terrible phrase when he used to say, she's got to go.
Yeah.
She
said, what he said was, we've decided you've got to go. Yeah. We.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's hearing the voices.
Yeah.
But I remember you telling me, I'm not going to tell your story. You should tell the story.
I'll tell the story and you interrupt.
Which is of you drinking with him one day and him coming round out of some,
About Sharon?
Yeah. And he goes, I'm going to ring her now and tell her.
We were at his place at the Larrabee Apartments in LA.
Yeah.
And he was doing the No More Tears album, and I happened to be in LA at the same time, and he said, "Yeah, what are you doing?" "Nothing. Come over." So I went over, and as I arrived, I'm pressing the intercom because he's on like the third floor or something, and no one's answering. I'm thinking he did say 8 o'clock, didn't he? I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm trying to ring on the. No, I probably didn't have a cell phone, but. And next thing, the door opens, and out comes this young kid, like literally flying out the fucking door. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, thanks, Ozzy, man. Yes, gone." And so I got in, and I went up to the floor, and I could hear the music as the elevator opened. He's playing a track from his own new album, "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
Oh, that one.
They'd just done the "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
Oh, yeah.
That ginormous hit.
Yeah.
But he's singing along to it. So I get to the door and the door's open. It's blaring out and he's in there singing along to it. I'm kind of like, Ozzy, help me, Ozzy. Fucking hell, it's Mick. Whoa, you made me fucking jump. Oh, should I come in? Yeah. I said, I just saw a kid. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know who he is. He's some Sabbath fan. He was on the doorstep. So I said, do you want to hear my new album? And he was like, yeah. He goes, so I brought him in. He goes, and then he left in a big hurry.
He just went for some reason.
He just left. I'm thinking,
yeah. See this maniac standing there.
Yeah, singing Mama, I'm Coming Home. So we ended up spending the evening together. He just bought a new bong on Melrose. Oh, yeah. I hadn't seen one of those in about 10 years. I'm like, oh, okay. He had a huge bottle of vintage Napoleon brand, whatever you call it, and a black bin liner full of weed. And then over here, sort of scrubbed in a drawer, he pulls out a kind of a mini sack of white powder.
Mm.
Next thing I know, it's 2 a.m, and we're driving along Sunset Boulevard with his driver, Tonyman, and we go to a place called the Pink Dot, just an all-night sort of shop, and they sell cake. So we buy a huge cake. We go back to his house. We can't find knives quick enough, so we're in our house fucking eating this cake. More bong, more brandy, more everything. And I've obviously reached a kind of a Buddhist plane at this point. I'm Zen.
Yeah.
I am Zen in a kind of anti-Zen world. My thoughts are occupied with higher things. And suddenly he just sort of emerges out of the tank and goes, do you know what? You're fucking right. I'm going to fucking ring her now. And I'm like, what? What am I right about? Who? Yeah, I'm going to fucking ring Sharon now and tell her. I went, tell her what? What you said. What did I say? that I should get a new manager. I went, don't fucking tell her that. Or if you tell her that, don't tell her it was me. Because I don't even know if I don't think
I don't think that.
I don't think that. I didn't say that. No, you're right. I'm telling her now. So, because she's in the UK. So for us, it's like 4 a.m. So for her, it's like midday or something. Yeah. And he's like, oh, Sharon, yes, Ozzy. Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here with Mick Wall. I'm going, no, you fucking idiot. Yeah. And me and Mick have been talking. So, no. And we reckon I need a new manager. You stay my wife, but I need a new manager. Proper manager. I need a proper manager. I'm literally I'm looking for Kurt's shotgun at this moment, ready to fucking blow my brains out. I'm like, please don't say that. And he's like this on the phone. He's like, what's that? Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, all right. All right. Okay. Bye. Yeah. Bye. I said, what did she say? He goes, she said she wants a fucking divorce. I went, ring her back and tell her you were joking and that I'm not here.
Most importantly, tell her that I'm not here.
Yeah, and I think you definitely should carry on with Sharon as your manager.
Yeah.
And he did. And I saw her literally a month or so later. We had lunch by the pool at the Sunset.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I, of course, attempted a mea culpa.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, like, I didn't...
Yeah, it was him.
It was all him. Like all your mea culpas. It was
the other bloke.
Yeah. Like you did with Axel and...
Well, in fairness, I was reading the story yesterday and you were interviewing Vince Neil.
Yeah.
And Vince told you that
obtaining the facts, I think you'll find.
But I start talking to Sharon about this. She just roars with laughter. She goes, I get that phone call every day. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, good.
But no, so they are real characters. But here's the thing about the Osbournes, because there was no reality TV really. I mean, Big Brother was probably the first.
We're just edging into that
to
point
normalise
where,
it.
Yeah, because what it did was it took the notion of a documentary and kind of shaped it in that you would have setups. So we want to see Ozzy. We want to see
rockumentary,
if you will. We want to see Ozzy fall off his chair. So Ozzy falls off his chair or whatever.
But seriously, way back in the 80s and the early 90s, I remember sitting with her because the tears would be falling down your face whenever you were with them, whatever the situation.
Yeah, they're fine. I mean,
and I'd say to her,
these aren't tears of angst.
No, tears of joy.
Tears of laughter.
Laughter. And
like Ken Dodd's tears.
And for souvenirs.
Yeah.
No more tears for souvenirs. Or indeed the tears of a clown.
Yeah.
Or indeed the tracks of my tears.
Any other tears, yeah. Just tears of happiness.
Yeah, joy. And I used to say, and lots of people used to say, God, it's such a shame that people can't see this.
That. Yeah.
Because all they see is Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
They don't know Sharon is the puppet master. But most of all, they don't know how fucking funny these two are.
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite frightened of Ozzy the first few times I knew him because he could be really so out of it that it was not pleasant.
Yeah.
And it was a mutual friend that said, no, you so have not got it. She worked for Sharon, a wonderful lady named Lynn Seeger. And she said, no, you've got to meet them. You don't, honestly, you don't know. I said, no, I don't want to work with that guy. He's horrible. She's like, no. So I had lunch, happened to be at the first Rock in Rio festival. So we had lunch at the Rio Palace Hotel. And I swear to God, I just was falling off my seat laughing.
Yeah, funny. I mean,
she was as funny as him, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They were together. They were brilliant.
Really, yeah.
And we used to say, it's such a shame that this aspect, because obviously you can't put it on record. There wasn't.
No, you have to see it. You have to be there.
There was no way you could imagine a way of sharing.
Yeah.
So then they did a documentary on Ozzy. One of those. It wasn't Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, but similar. And it had quite a lot of that in it, but incidental to his making his album and blah blah blah. And I think it was off the back of that someone at MTV went, maybe there's something here.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And then, from that you have all of Sharon's TV career. She becomes a star in her own right. Arguably now is probably more famous than Ozzy. Yeah,
absolutely. What was weird about that was suddenly everybody felt they knew Ozzy and Sharon.
Yeah.
My in-laws would talk about Ozzy and Sharon as if they knew them.
Yeah.
Because in reality TV, you feel you do get to know them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you know what else? They're in a way, they're also then to blame for the Kardashians.
Absolutely, because all of that stuff comes off the back of it. Yeah.
Except it's not as interesting or funny because they actually manicure it.
Yeah, but I think they did start to do that with the Osbournes towards the end, didn't they? They would put them in scenarios where stuff would happen, which is where you get that kind of factional element. But But the fact is that Ozzy is funny and Sharon is funny.
Yeah.
It's just unlike other rock stars and people you could mention.
Well, Gene Simmons did his own version of
Did he really? No shit. Gene copied someone's show.
But did it in his way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't remotely as fun, or I don't think I even watched a single episode. No. It's one of those things you go, I can do that.
But you can't. You can't, yeah.
Because as Sharon's father, Don, and he was the one who came up with this term that was used ever after in the music business, as Don always used to say, you can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
Because a turd is still a turd.
Still a turd, yeah.
Even when you paint it gold.
Yeah. It's underneath. That's what it is, yeah.
So, Ozzy.
Yeah.
A lot of people said the Osbournes hurt his musical career, that people could no longer take him seriously as an artist. To which I used to think, did they take him that seriously? Yeah. Maybe in America they did. Probably they did in America.
I just think he did. The genius of it was it extended his career way beyond it would have lasted, because he got into that point where, the first few solo albums were great. They were massive. They were, he still had that, what you were talking about, that sort of thing where half of America thought he was the Antichrist,
Yeah.
Well, as soon as that was blown up and shown to be just a bit of, another bit of showbiz puffery or whatever, where was he going to go? Where was he? He kept churning out these solo records, but they weren't very good. They got progressively worse.
Yeah.
And he had people writing for him.
And superfluous, really.
Yeah.
I mean, how many, same with the Stones or whoever, how many new songs do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
Although, and here we kind of bring it up to the present, have you heard any of the stuff on his most recent solo?
No.
A lot of it is very good. Because again, Sharon has done it again. She brought in Andrew Watt to work with him. And Andrew Watt is this, I worked with Andrew a few years ago, insanely talented kid, really good looking, but can play any instrument, great singer, great writer. He'd worked with Michael Jackson, he'd worked in all kinds of pop records. And then when I met him, it was him, Glenn Hughes and John Bonham formed a group. I can't remember what the fuck they were called. Isn't that dreadful? But they were amazing because of this guy, Andrew Watt. But there was trouble in Paradise quite quickly, and that group fell apart. And Andrew Watt went on to do solo stuff. And I was doing press releases and some things with him. I just thought, this kid's hot. And then, fuck knows what happened. It's 5 years later, and now he's working with Ozzy.
Yeah.
And there's Post Malone, and there's all these very contemporary art, just as she did in the 80s, with Motley and Metallica, and suddenly Ozzy's with the cutting edge people of now.
Yeah.
And when it works really, really well, and it makes him seem a million times more contemporary than anybody of his.
Well, I mean, he's 70 now, isn't he? So.
I agree, but, so is Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
And Alice Cooper is still kind of just doing his shtick. I mean, I got Johnny Depp on guitar and Joe Perry. Well, that's good if you happen to be over 40.
Yeah, but I mean, these are minor cosmetic differences, aren't they? I mean,
whereas Ozzy, Sharon goes, right, you're working with Andrew Watt. I guarantee you Ozzy would have gone, who the fuck's that?
Yeah, he would, but he would have done it because
Sharon said. Sharon could have said, look, I need you to work with Harold Steptoe. He's the fucking man. And Ozzy would have done it because Sharon has been proved right again and again and again.
And again.
And again. But she's kept Ozzy going, even though, I mean, do you think we'll ever see him on a stage again?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think that's it. I hate to say it, but having said, I mean, they were on TV together the other...
On a breakfast show over here, was it?
Yeah, when...
In the UK.
Ozzy was lying in bed. And I just thought it's probably time, He's not that well. He's had a life of excess. Why put yourself through it? It
reminds me a little bit of the last days of Lemmy, where through his own insistence more than anything, he was still out there.
Yeah.
Even though he could barely stand up.
Yeah.
Even though he couldn't remember
because
his
that's
own
what
lyrics.
he had. But Ozzy's got more than that. And I hate to say, I don't want to disparage Lemmy. He had lots of friends and all of that. But the Motorhead thing was his life. It was either that or sitting in the Rainbow playing the fruit machine.
Yeah.
Ozzy's got a lot more than that.
Yeah, he has.
He's got a family. He's got, a lovely house and life, and he's got the different TV projects going on and all the rest of it. He can quite easily be entertained.
So who would you rather die as? Lemmy, in your own pad.
With your boots on.
With your boots on, your computer games, your industrial strength methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Or...
You're selling it to me.
I'm really selling it to you now. Or...
in my mansion with my loving wife and children and my multi-billions in the bank.
Yeah.
And people still saying, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?
Yeah. Think about that for a moment.
I'm thinking about it.
Who would you rather die
I don't
as?
know. I'd rather not die. Yeah.
Hey, if you're with Sharon, maybe you won't.
Yeah, maybe you won't. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a trick even Sharon won't be able to pull.
Wow,
but they're so much of a couple now, and you think about them as so much of a couple. You hate the thought of anything happening to Ozzy.
Yeah.
Because you realise their relationship is a genuine one.
Yeah. Now you've hit on the truth. Yeah, ups, yes. Downs, yes, like any couple.
Yeah.
But like the best couples, they've stuck together.
Yeah, they've stuck,
Not... are there right reasons? Are there wrong reasons? They're just
probably
reasons.
Both, yeah.
Anybody who's ever been married
will understand.
For a long time.
But again, this is what chimes about their relationship, isn't it? This is why people like them. Because they look at them and go, yeah, okay, well, they might live in a mansion or whatever and have all the money, but...
They still have to pick up the dog shit.
Exactly. They still have, Sharon's still running round after Ozzy, telling him to tidy up. And it's just... that retaining that kind of common bond and touch has been the sort of the real genius of it, really, I think.
And really, are there any other couples in rock or pop music where you go, look at those guys,
No, exactly. Who've done, and I think also the reason I don't think Ozzy should go back out is I saw the last Sabbath shows, not the last one, but the last tour. I saw them a couple of times at the O2. Phenomenal, really good, because the staging was great. Iommi was great. Ozzy, I'm sure if you heard a recording back, probably wasn't brilliant, but he was still Ozzy, and the set list was amazing, And they were, and I thought, you know what, that's how it should finish. It's a bit like Rush or whatever who've decided to hang it up.
Yeah,
because Neil Peart's got. That's how it should finish, and it's sad that it has finished. And for all that you'd love to see them again, I'm glad we won't.
Okay. Well, I will just add a sunny note to that by saying also, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because I tell you what, Sharon just has all the tricks at her disposal. She's very creative and inventive. And even though I don't think we'll see Ozzy on a stage again, or maybe a one-off somewhere.
Yeah, I think maybe a one-off. Maybe
lots of guests.
Maybe we do like that Elvis thing. Like when Elvis did the singer special when it was just a TV thing. You might do something like that.
I'd like to see Ozzy end that by singing "Glory, Glory, Hallelujah."
He could do it. He could still pull it out.
The saps keep mine.
And here's me old mate, Bob Daisley, has come along to play something.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm not even going to get into that one. We're going to say all hail Ozzy.
All hail the Oz.
And
Sharon.
And Sharon.
Good on you.
God bless you, Sharon.
Yeah.
God bless you, Ozzy. We love you. Well, I do. I'm not sure about John.
If you liked this episode, be sure to leave us a review, share it with a friend, or plain old subscribe wherever you happen to listen to it. For full episode show notes, visit nofilter.media/Getcha Rocks Off.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.